So we wanted to look at really highlight some features as you look at or think about going to Business Central. What are some of the things that you get with the product? So that's what we're going to spend our time looking at today. And I want to start by looking at Copilot. So Eric talked a little bit about Copilot, and Microsoft is incorporating Copilot in Business Central, and you're going to see it a lot of different places. Check out Scott Frapier's session in a couple hours around Copilot. He's going to talk in more detail about this, but I wanted to at least highlight a couple things. The first one is really the Copilot here at the role center level, and you've got fundamentally three things that you can do here. I can ask it, how do I do something? So how do I send a customer statement? And what I like about this is Copilot is looking at documentation and online information and that sort of stuff, but Copilot really is going to give you a how-to set of answers, not a help set of answers. And I think that's a big distinction in terms of how Copilot can actually help you on this role center thing. So you can ask it questions about how to do something. You can also ask it questions about your data. So I could say, which customers have an outstanding balance? And I can ask that question. And Copilot's going to look at my data inside of Business Central and return an answer. This is a big shift in terms of thinking about using English language to query your data. So as Eric alluded to in the keynote about a Copilot really being a UI type interface, this sort of gets you a preview of that, of where I can start asking questions about things that are going on inside of my system and have Copilot give me an answer. Again, check out Scott's session. He can talk more about that. Do want to just preview 2 agents. Eric talked a little bit about agents as well. Microsoft is delivering 2 agents with Business Central. The first one is a Payables agent. What the Payables agent really is doing is OCR work. So it's taking an inbound document of some kind from your vendor and it's creating a purchase invoice. It can do matching to purchase orders if you want to, but that's fundamentally what the agent is doing. I always think of as an agent as hands on the keyboard for you. So it's an assistant. The agent's actually doing something within the application and interacting with it. So Payables agent is one of them there. The other one is a sales order agent. What this is really doing is allowing you to interact with your customers. So customer sends an email in requesting a product. I potentially could send them a sales quote via email. I could send and convert that quote to an order, send the order acknowledgement back to the customer. So again, think hands on the keyboard. Not going to go into a lot of detail on those, but just note that those agents are available there right off of the role center. So check out Scott's session a little bit later for more information. You're going to see summary windows and that sort of stuff embedded throughout the application. Copilot is other places like bank reconciliation, that sort of thing. So it's more than just on the role center. Not going to go into a lot of details on that. All right, Missy talked a little bit about licensing options with Business Central, and I want to start with what we call the Essentials license. So the Essentials license is really that fundamental license of Business Central. So it's that base license. With that, you're going to get full general ledger capabilities. So we talked about the chart of accounts, dimensions, all that sort of stuff. You're going to get the fixed assets module. So fixed assets integrates with payables as well as the general journal when I calculate depreciation. So that comes with it. We are fully multi-company enabled as well. So with the Essentials license, you're going to get the ability to run a full multi-company processing. Multi-company could allow you to do non-related business units. So if maybe there are 2 businesses that you own, but they don't actually transact business with one another, fine, you could lock off the intercompany. Intercompany can be processed at a GL level. So I'm going to get journal entries and I can get due tos and due froms automatically created. We also move into the distribution area. So I can have a purchase order and a sales order created between related entities as well, creating due tos and due from. So more than just a GL entry. And again, you could shut it off if you want to. We have consolidations out of the box. So if you're doing those multi-companies and they roll up, partial ownership, multi-currency, we can do all that with consolidations. We are fully multi-currency enabled out of the box. So if it's as little as maybe I'm just selling across the border into Canada or into the US, just one currency, fine, we can do that. But you can set up as many currencies as you want. So if you're doing importing and exporting and all sorts of different things, currency can affect pricing, cost, all that sort of stuff within the system. Pretty powerful out of the box functionality. We do have GL budgets. So general ledger budgets can be stored inside of Business Central. A little bit different. This is not an account balance for a period. This is actually a transaction behind the scenes. I like to just say that's a distinction between what you've got with GP. We do have import export functionality from in through Excel. So importing the Excel budget from Excel or exporting the format to Excel for entry, we certainly facilitate all of that. We do have statistical accounts. So statistical accounts, non-financial data. If you want to bring that into Business Central, absolutely you can do that. Statistical accounts can be used with financial reporting. So if you want FTE, revenue by FTE or something like that, absolutely something that you could do. Financial reporting, as Kenny alluded to, in Business Central. So no MR, it's built into Business Central. I think if you're transitioning from MR, the building block concepts that you have with MR are very similar here. So I've got a row format, I've got a column format, those two come together to create a financial report. I think the learning curve moving from MR to financial reporting is pretty doable for most people. So again, conceptually, you've got the same building blocks that are going into it. You don't have a tree, so that's not here, but again, the row format, column format, same idea as what you've got with MR. Couple other things, or one other big thing that we've got in Business Central is a cash flow forecast, and that comes with an Essentials license. So I think this is some pretty powerful functionality that you get out of the box. It allows you to look at purchase documents. It allows you to look at sales documents. It's going to do that cash flow projection based on those payment terms that are in the system. You can look at budgets. You can put manual cash entries in there if you want to. You can do fixed assets disposals in there if you wanted to, but it's going to give you a cash flow forecast. The cash flow forecast is really a separate set of transactions that are available that you can do reporting on. It's different than a financial report cash flow forecast. That's not really what I'm talking about. It's a separate set of transactions that allow you to do the cash flow forecast. Pretty powerful functionality, comes with your base license. From a payables perspective, obviously we have vendor management, but we've got a full payment or a purchasing cycle, a set of documents that you can leverage. So we do have blanket purchase orders, purchase quotes, purchase orders, purchase invoices, and then the full return cycle. So a full purchase return order where I'm shipping something back to the vendor potentially, or just a straight credit memo. What I appreciate about Business Central is the flexibility here in terms of what documents do you want to use in your processes and which ones don't you want to use. So maybe you don't do blanket orders, you don't do purchase quotes, fine, not a big deal. Maybe you don't do purchase orders, you want to go directly to a purchase invoice, fine. All those other documents don't need to be used, but they're available if you want and you need them in your system. 1099 out of the box. So we do have the 1099 capabilities connected to your vendors, and we do have use tax. What I like about the use tax system is it does connect to the sales tax system. So when you go to file, sales and use tax, you do it together. So in terms of easeability or usability, ease of use type things, I think that's a great option. We do have banks. So Deb alluded to this a little bit in terms of the bank account configuration, but we can link to your bank account. So what that allows you to do is to get that bank statement from your bank. It allows you to create an EFT file, send it to your bank for electronic payment processing. Positive pay files we can create out of Business Central to send to your bank as well. So all of that's connected together. Bank reconciliation in the system. I like the way that the bank rec works inside of Business Central. Again, I think ease of use, it's very straightforward. It's date-based, so you can do daily bank recs if you want to, weekly bank recs, whatever works for your organization, you can get that connected together. And then Copilot is also introduced around banking. So some nice functionality there. We can generate the MICR encoded line on your checks. So if you're printing physical checks, absolutely, we can get that MICR line in there. Blank security stock, don't have to have pre-numbered forms or anything like that. So a lot of easy use pieces there. From a sales perspective, we do have the full sales cycle. And what you're going to see is that really the sales cycle and the purchasing cycle are mirror images of one another. So on the sales side, obviously customer management, multiple ship tos. I failed to mention on the vendor side, we do have the remit to address. So if you're doing a physical check to a different address than your PO or your purchase invoice, not a problem, got that taken care of too. But we've got the blanket sales order, sales quote, sales order, sales invoice. So same set of transactions from a sales perspective that's available. Sales return order and credit memos. So the return order allows a customer to ship product back. I can receive against a sales return order. From the sales return order, I can create a return to vendor. So full cycle in terms of inventory back to the vendor if I need to, and then create a replacement sales order if I want to. So all that functionality exists on the sales cycle for you. We do have links then to the CRM suite of applications. So we're not really talking a lot about CRM here, but We do have the ability out of the box with Business Central to connect to your CRM system, dynamic CRM system. So in terms of setting up customers and items, we've got that ability. If I click on account, for example, here, it's going to take me over into Dynamics 365 sales and open up the customer account. So I've got the ability to link those records together. So customers to accounts, I've got inventory items, pricing, the ability to flow then sales order transactions, actually sales quotes. So I could create a sales quote, send it over to the ERP for fulfillment purposes, send shipping information back to CRM. So all that connectivity available with Business Central back to the CRM system if you want to set that up. From an inventory perspective, just talk a little bit about items. So I'm going to open up an inventory item and talk a little bit about inventory setup. I always say inventory is elastic. You don't need to use all this functionality if you don't want to, but there's a lot of functionality here. So unit to measure conversions, non-quantity bearing items, certainly functionality that we have available to us. Costing method down at the item level. So you could have costing, it could be mixed if you wanted to. So some FIFO, maybe some standard, whatever you want to do available around the inventory side of things. We do support assembled items. So that would be analogous to a kit. Added functionality here, if you're using kits and GPs, we've got the ability to plan for those. So planning parameters in terms of reorder points, that sort of thing. I can stock a kit, so I can pre-make kits using an assembly order if I want to, or I can do assemble to order. So what that means is I would put a sales order in for the item, and then it's going to generate an assembly order, so I'm going to make that item. So some flexibility there around inventory. We do have planning parameters, so the replenishment system of purchase or assembly. I can then go into the reorder policy regarding the items. We call it a requisition worksheet if I'm just doing distribution. We do have full MRP if we go to manufacturing if you need to as well. Projects, just highlight a little bit on the project accounting side of things. So we do have projects, again, with the Essentials license, which is pretty powerful functionality. So this would allow me to do multiple tasks. I can have time cards that I could submit against a project if I want to. I can do purchase orders, purchase invoice, buy to the project if I want to from a cost perspective. I can issue inventory to a project. And then from a billing perspective, I've got the ability to bill the customer off of the project. So full project accounting functionality. I have seen some organizations use projects just on an internal basis. So maybe you're doing a building project or something like that. You're not doing full project accounting, maybe necessarily like billing a customer and that sort of thing, but I could use it for internal use as well. So that functionality exists with the base license. With the premium license, so this would be an additional cost, I do have full manufacturing capabilities. So that's going to give me the ability to do the bill of material, routing. I've got work centers or machine centers. I can do production orders, production planning, and I can make something. Okay. As I said, full MRP capabilities there as well. I also have the ability to do service management. I always think HVAC, so I'm going to maybe sell a piece of equipment and then I'm going to do maintenance against it, or I'm going to have service calls against it. So that would be service. So those would be two additional added sets of functionality with the premium license. Okay, let's look at some other, I think, broad feature functionality. First of all, this is browser-based. The nice thing about a browser-based application is I've got the ability to run this in conjunction with SaaS, the software as a service. I can run this anywhere I've got a browser. So I've got Edge or Firefox, Chrome, Safari. I can connect, get an internet connection, get to Business Central. So I'm not locked into a desktop app anymore. So really, I don't need to do an install, let's say, of Business Central someplace. I can just run the application. Also for updates. So we've got a backend service that gets updated. I don't really have to do anything from a client perspective. So again, for updates and those sorts of things, it makes it very easy to use. Microsoft does have apps that are available. Apps are available on phone and tablet devices. Those are specific to the OS that you have. So if you're running Android or Apple, you've got the ability to download those apps. They're free, same user ID and password that I use to access the browser, I can use to access the phone or the tablet version of Business Central. It is a fully functional app. So could you run or create a journal entry on your phone? I don't know that you'd want to, but you certainly could. So the ability to enter transactions, post transactions, reporting, all that is available, phone or your tablet. I encourage clients, just download them. They're free. You're not out anything to have it there. You're sitting in a meeting. You've got quick access to information that you may want to get to. So awesome apps that are available. Microsoft does have an app store, and I just want to drop out here. We've talked about some ISVs. So again, thank you to our sponsors, Avalara, iSolutions, and ADP for being here. The App Store is where you go to download apps to add to Business Central. So think of your phone, you buy a phone, it doesn't do everything that I want it to do. So I download apps to add functionality to my phone. Same thing with Business Central. As of right now, there are 8,839 apps that are available for Business Central. So for example, I want to download the Avalara app, I can just search Avalara, and what you're going to see is the applications that they're going to be talking about a little bit later are available right from the App Store. So the way that you really do the install is just going to the App Store, doing the download, install into your environment. Always do it in a sandbox environment, never do it in a production environment. Talk to your partner about it beforehand. That's available. iSolutions, for example. So we go to iSolutions, Corey was on. There's your iSolutions options available via the App Store. So that's how extensions are added to Business Central. Makes it very easy to know what's available. You can search this marketplace, find solutions if you want to. Check with us. We work with a lot of these partners, and we can recommend apps if you're looking for them as well. So just note that it's fairly straightforward in terms of how those work. Extensions can also be done custom. So if you want customizations to your system, we use the same model, but we can add custom columns, custom tables, custom reports to your systems. Huge set of options exist for you in terms of, again, adding functionality to the system. Drop over into the admin center. So we are talking about software as a service. What that means is that Microsoft maintains the back end of the application for you. You do have a production system, and then you can create additional 3 sandbox environments with your license. Sandboxes are used for testing, training, pre-deployment. You can do upgrade testing here, all that sort of functionality in the system. The nice thing about this is that Microsoft takes care of this for you. So yes, it's in an Azure data center, but Microsoft does database maintenance, they do database backups, they do resource allocation to make sure your system is running at an optimal performance level. They take care of all that for you. So it's very much a hands-off in terms of that back-end management. At the same time, you do have the ability to determine when those updates happen. So Microsoft does 2 major updates a year. That wave release that Kenny was talking about just happened here in April. But you have the ability to control when is that update applied to your environment. So it's not a sort of I walk in the morning, my system's changed. It doesn't happen that way. You can control when those updates happen. So pretty powerful feature there. Back into the application, this main landing page is called the Role Center. And really the design intent behind the Role Center is the feature functionality, the data points that I want front and center are what's going to show up on my Role Center. I'm going to just flip over to an inventory manager and just talk to or show you what a different Role Center could look like. So these can all be changed if you want to, but as an inventory manager now, my lens is around inventory transactions. So what you're going to notice is the activity queues, the shortcuts, the menus are all focused around inbound, outbound, and warehouse transactions, not necessarily the lens of sales order, purchase order. So I'm thinking as an inventory operator here, not as a business manager. So different role centers focused around different areas of the application. So there's an accounting role center that's commonly used for manufacturing. We've got those. Sales order agent, so that's going to be really focusing around sales orders. There are some specific role centers for shipping and receiving, subscription management, that sort of thing. But again, the idea here is that the role center focuses around the job function that I have. It's not going to change my security settings by changing role centers. It's really just about the visual of the UI. There was a question, if I understand correctly, we would not need to add any financial reporting to BC. We currently use MR and Power BI with GP to run our financial reports. Correct. Don't need management reporter anymore. Inside of Business Central, you can go right to financial reporting and finance. The vast majority of our clients, that works great. There are additional tools if you want, I would say maybe more advanced financial reporting. We certainly could direct you to those, but I think for the most part, Power BI, built-in financial reporting is going to work for organizations. Okay, I do like to talk about the ability to do personalization in this system, and I think this is a huge benefit of Business Central. So right within the browser, and really this works on any page, I have the ability here to go to personalization. And what personalization is going to allow me to do is to take fields and drag and drop them onto these pages. So everybody wants to see things a little bit differently. Maybe your organization, there's certain data points that are important, other data points that are not important. The point is that you can tailor these pages to meet the needs or expose the functionality that your organization is using. I think of this as really decluttering the system. So we talked some about user adoption and user satisfaction of the system. I think one of the big factors that I've noticed within organizations regarding user adoption and user satisfaction is what I would say decluttering the system. So as an end user, the fields that I see on the pages are the ones that I need to deal with. The extraneous information or maybe the functionality in the system we're not using, I don't have to deal with it. So currency code, I think, is a great example. If you're not doing things in multiple currencies, you actually can just get rid of the currency code field. So as an end user, I don't have to wonder, do I populate this? Do I not populate it? I can just take it off the page and really declutter that. I've seen clients do a lot of things. If we look at a vendor card, for example, there are multiple sections here on the card. Maybe you're not an organization that does receiving or shipping, so you're not a distribution type organization. You could take those fields off if you wanted to or hide them from your end users. So they're not having to look at things, again, that isn't relevant to your organization. So I think that's a powerful feature. Personalization can be done globally, so everybody's looking at the same pages all the time. You call me and you've got a question, my pages look like your pages, so we can really help each other out. So I think that's awesome. Drill down capabilities. A common piece of feedback that I get from clients that move from GP to BC is that they run fewer reports. And really why they run fewer reports is because a lot of data points are available just within the application. So for example, when I look at my vendor list, I can see what's the balance and the balance due. I don't need to run a report to get to that information. We have what we call fact boxes over here on the right. Fact boxes, I would say, are intended to show additional information about the record that I'm on, but I don't have to run a report to get to it. So if I want to know outstanding orders, received not invoiced, I've got that visibility by just looking at a vendor list. Now, Kenny showed you reports. We got hundreds of reports in the system. So absolutely those reports exist in the system, but I don't maybe necessarily need to run one. I've got drill down capabilities. So if I look at a current balance on a vendor, for example, I'm going to just click into it. It's going to allow me to look, in this case, at open transactions. Throughout the application, I have filter capabilities. And what happens as I navigate the application is I'm opening a page and a filter is being applied to that page. But you can change the filters. So for example, I'm looking at open transactions because I clicked on a balance on the vendor, but I've got this field here for open. Maybe I want to close that off and I want to look at all transactions for the vendor. So just as easy as just clicking off a particular filter, I can now see something different. I could uncheck the vendor and now I'm looking at all purchase transactions in the entire system. So that quickly I went from a specific open transaction listing to all available transactions in the system. I'm going to flip over here to analysis views, and Kenny talked or showed you a little bit of this, and I want to talk some more to this. So if you're familiar with or you use smart lists, and our GP clients love smart lists, this is really the alternative or the equivalent, if you will, to the smart list in GP. We call them analysis views. So with analysis views, I could still apply that filter if I want to, but I've got other fields that are available that I can just drag and drop onto this form if I want to. So if I want a particular date, or you get the point, I can click these things on or off. I also can go into pivot mode. So what that would allow me to do is really create a pivot table inside of Business Central. So do I want to summarize this data somehow? Do I want to total or count? Or you get the point, I can apply those types of filters. I also have the ability then to add columns from other tables if I want to. So like a smart list, maybe I want to pull a data element from someplace else in the system. Using an analysis view, now I can connect to and join to another table and pull other relevant fields on here if I want to. So inside of Business Central, just like we have with Smart List, I can name these and save them if I want to. Anywhere, and I say anywhere in the application, but it's pretty much true anywhere in the application that, so if I'm back in my vendor list and I see this icon, I see this icon That's that analysis view. So I can switch over to analysis view on my vendor list, on my item list, on my customer list, on list of transactions, on the detailed transactions if I want to, and then create these pivot tables and smart lists. So I think it's pretty powerful functionality. Check it out when you get in there. The other thing on the lists themselves is there's calculated values. I like to drop over here to this item list. So on my item list, I can very quickly see what's on hand, what's on sales orders, what's on purchase orders, what's on production orders. So like I said before, needing to run a report, I may not need to run a report to get to this information. This information is live. As transactions are being posted, all this stuff is being updated. So I'm getting a real live number here, and it's also drill down enabled. So the 11 on POs, I want to see what those are. I'm now going to drill into PO lines. Like I showed you before, this is a filtered list. So I can now change my filter, update the filter. I can click over to an analysis view if I want to. All this capability exists as I drill into the transactions, and I can get more information from that. Notifications are actually approvals. I want to just show you the workflow approvals inside of Business Central. Deb, I think, alluded to this earlier. So inside of Business Central, I've got workflow approvals that I can leverage. So these are the templates that are in the system. There's a couple of new ones that have been added with the Wave release, but the point being is that I could set up a workflow approval in Business Central. Could be on the master record, so a new customer vendor, something like that. Could be on the change of a field, so maybe the customer credit limit increases and I want to go through a workflow approval on that. Purchase documents, right? So I'm going to add a purchase order and it's a particular department and I want to go through a workflow approval on it. So that's available in the system out of the box. We also have the ability to go to Power Automate. So within Power Automate, I have a series of business templates that I can use, that I can leverage. So these are in Power Automate. They're just templates that I can now leverage to do things like workflow approvals. This actually allows me to do more than that and set up, for example, notifications. And notifications allow me to monitor something that's happening inside of Business Central and then send some sort of alert or notification out when a particular value or when a particular condition is met. So not just from an approval perspective, but I think from a notification perspective. That pivots me over to Teams. And Teams Link is another powerful feature that we get with Business Central. So I've got native ability to run Business Central inside of Teams channels. And this is actually what I do at Stone Ridge. We use Teams all the time. I access all of our Dynamics applications directly from Teams channels. So I don't navigate anywhere. I get to it right from here. So we can run Business Central if you want to from here, but we can also do things with Power Automate, like creating dynamic alerts to Teams channels. So this example, what it is, there's an inspection order that's been created inside of Business Central. The Power Automate alert fires because a condition was met, sends an alert to a particular Teams channel. What I've done is I've dynamically created then these links within the post. So I don't need to navigate to Business Central. I could click directly on the inspection order, the item card, item summary, really whatever you wanted to configure in terms of a link, I can set up then on this post, this Teams post. So what you're seeing is the ability to connect all these applications together and really, again, leverage the full platform that's available from Microsoft. All right, let's talk a little bit about Edit in Excel. So again, Deb alluded to this. Edit in Excel really allows you to do a two-way integration back and forth with Business Central data when I'm inside of Excel. So from within Excel, I've linked to my item table in this case, but I've got the ability to update records, create records, potentially delete records using Excel as a client against Business Central. I use this all the time for loading data. I love it. If you're an inventory client of mine, you probably use this all the time. You want to set up 400 new inventory items. I can open up Edit in Excel. I can copy from a spreadsheet into another spreadsheet, hit publish, and I'm going to just create those items inside of Business Central. This is a smart connection to Business Central though. So first of all, it is going to maintain my security settings while I'm inside of Excel related to my security settings for Business Central. So I'm not bypassing security. I'm not creating another security system. It's consistent. The data is also validated. So from an item configuration perspective, if I wanted to take item category code and I want to say, I want to put that item category code and I want to call it Marcus. Now, from a data type perspective, it matches. But what you're going to see here is that from a configuration perspective, it doesn't match. So data validated from a configuration perspective, not just a matching data type. I've seen Excel connections to other applications, and generally it's a data type validation. So Marcus is a valid item category code in terms of its text, and it's less than 20 characters, but it's not from a setup perspective. So limiting really the amount of sort of bad data that you would get into the system facilitated with this as well. All right, edit in Excel. Power BI, I'm not going to go into Power BI specifically, but Kenny alluded to this. There are Power BI reports, or what they're calling apps, around functional areas. So there's a finance app, inventory, sales, purchasing. They're free to download, put them into the system. You can modify them if you want to, but a pretty powerful feature within the application. From an Outlook perspective, we do integrate with Outlook, so you can run Business Central inside of Outlook. You also have the ability to do emailing. And I'm just going to pull up a PO here, and I want to talk some about a couple of things. So I've got the ability to send by email. So purchase orders, sales invoices, the remittance advice, if you're doing EFTs, I can email that. I've got the ability to email directly, or what we call prompt for settings. And prompt for settings allows me then to really tweak this email before it goes out. And there's a couple of things that I want to talk about. One is the email itself is going to have a body of the email, and then it's going to have an attachment. So you can configure what do you want in the body of the email and what do you want to set up as an attachment. So this is a PDF copy of the purchase order. I also can then add other files, or I can add from source documents. So we have document attachments on master records and on transactions. And when I'm sending, in this example, a purchase order out, I actually could pull a copy of a document that's attached to the vendor on this record, or from a purchase order that's on a document that's attached to the purchase order. So more than just sending an email, more than just sending the document itself like a PO, I could send other documents that maybe are supporting this particular transaction. I can send those as well. So document attachments, but I can also leverage those inside of emails if I want to. In terms of ease of use, emails, discard that. Emails can automatically be sent to. So if I just say send up here, based on the configuration of the vendor or the customer, it could just automatically send the document. I had a client that used to manually email sales invoices out once a week. She went live on Business Central. We were able to really batch that sending process, saved her over 2 hours every week by just saying send in the background. All those emails were being sent. She didn't have to do them one at a time. So lots of ease of use around emails as well. In general, I get comments that say posting is faster. So what you're going to notice in Business Central is the ability really to, if I look at a purchase invoice document, for example, I'm going to pull this up. I've got the ability to do, first of all, I have the ability to do preview posting. So preview posting is going to show me all the transactions that are being created before they're created. So if I'm worried about what journal entries are being created, that's what preview posting allows me to look at that ahead of time. So don't forget about that as you're going live. But I have the ability to do post and new. And so a lot of GP clients are set up in batch mode. Fine, we could still support batches if you want to, but it does allow you to post as you go. And because posting happens so quickly, what I find is if, particularly let's say on a purchase invoice, I hit this post and new button, by the time that I flip the page over to key in the next transaction, the one that I'm on is posted. It also is posted through to the general ledger. So all of the subledgers to the GL are all tied. They're all connected together in real time. So what, again, I hear from feedback is posting is usually faster. It's quicker. It's just easier than what you're probably dealing with in GP. The other thing that I get commonly is that the closing cycle is faster. So just the way that the BC works, the way that those subledgers tie to the GL, yeah, you run your AP aging, your AR aging, your inventory valuation, but they just tie to the GL. So again, I can't guarantee that you're going to close faster, but feedback that I generally get is that those things happen faster as well.